Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And today we're going to be looking into this album's 10-year anniversary, which is today, and it's from, well, in my opinion, probably my favorite deathcore band and probably the best band that's going right now, and that is Hell Chose Me by Carnifex, the band's third album released on February 16th, 2010 through Victory Records. Now, of course, I've covered Carnifex before, but I've never really talked about more of their stuff. Like, like I don't think there's really any reviews of like more of their older albums. I mean, I could be wrong. Correct me if I am. But yeah, I feel like this was the follow up to their previous album, which came out in 2008, called "The Disease and the Poison." And like I feel like their first two albums, being "Dead in My Arms" and "The Disease and Poison," is kind of the deathcore stuff. But I feel like with Hell Chose Me, I feel like Carnifex sort of like goes into more of the, excuse me, the more kind of death metal side of deathcore. But you can definitely tell with like, especially with like the guitars sound and even the blast beats, they have like a little bit of a black metal style influence, and that pretty much would later influence sort of like more their later work or more recent material like Slow Death or Die Without Hope. But yeah, anyway, let's just dive right into this. Production wise, fantastic. Carnifex definitely has really great production, and vocally, Scott Lewis can do no wrong. One of the sickest his vocals ever. They're just very just ghastly and just ugh. And the guitar work from Corey Arford and former guitarist Ryan, I forget his last name. Both their guitar playing is just tight on this. The bass is pretty audible in the mix. Fred's bass is pretty audible. And drumming wise, my boy Sean Cameron can do no wrong. Just like the blast beats and just the insane drumming that he does is just fucking perfect. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is the title track of the album, Hell Chose Me, which is a strong opener showing some vast improvement while it's providing sort of like the situation of being drowned in a miserable and dark world. And the vocals from Scott are absolutely ghastly, carrying sort of like a terrifying and truly sinister effect that is reinforced by bone-crushing drum kicks. And there is like an often symbiotic relationship between the guitars and the drums, which leaves the vocals in sort of like a very unique category. However, here an eerie effect is created with the suitable gargled lows and his backing from the splintering drum kicks, while his high is sort of like Scott's highs are mixed well with the guitarist's impeccable articulation, even like during the most unconventional rhythmical deviations. And the musicians definitely pushed themselves and mostly succeed in the sounding different in comparison to like other deathcore bands that are around at that time. Overall, great way to start off the album. Anyway, moving on to Dead Archetype, which is just another uber busy and just a blistering blast fest. Next song on the album is called Entombed Monarch, which is driven by rocket-propelled tempos, jackhammering blast beats, lumbering rhythms, and commanding full-bodied vocals. And some subtle melodic picking is pretty much around here, but thus helping Carnifex distinguish themselves from most of their like tuneless peers. But for the most part, it is brutality that runs the show here once again. Names Mean Nothing, which is another hyperkinetic, head-spinning death grind blast fest that especially like utilizes with well-placed tempo changes, breakneck picking and drumming, and some especially cool and wicked sounding vocals here. Love this track. Anyway, next song on the album is called Heartless, which is another standout on account of being introduced by a melodic guitar interlude before soaring back with huge lumbering riffs, racing buzzsaw fast guitar leads, and a big chunky booming power chords which stand out and pretty much cast like the listener's eardrums, and even amidst like the 200 BPM melee, and all in all is anchored by impeccable machine gun drumming and also included here with a few breakdowns while the rest of the band sort of like drop off, leaving just the vocals to duel it out with sort of like a definite pounding like drum fills. Anyway, an excellent and propulsive drum intro, which will pretty much get you pumped up, which kicks off the next song, which is Sorrow Spell, and it just becomes just another blistering slab of death grind extremity with sort of like in the same vein of like Origin, Dying Fetus, or Cryptopsy. As such, and this song is already a standout track, but is further highlighted by the short but sweet spot of like harmonic soloing that provides the faintest glimpse of like melody into what would just be an all-out chaos right here. Anyway, next song on here is called The Scope of Obsession, which also snags the listener's ear and does help providing I don't know, some contrast and sort of like break and sort of like the monotony. Anyway, moving on to the next song on here, which is by Darkness Enslaved, which is another highlight on the account of like being the highlight by a couple of good brain drill-esque technical bass solos. And the part is especially noteworthy because it's not only the few times where the album, where the bass is not only audible, is actually doing something cool, which is really great. Not to say that it wasn't doing anything before, but it just, I don't know, it just one of the few moments where it stands out to me. Anyway, moving on to The Liar's Funeral, which is an oddly catchy song, as it sort of like weaves in some memorable vocal patterns and melodic sweeps into the mix of like Nile-esque jackhammering rhythms and effective mosh pit ready grooves. Anyway, then of course the album concludes with Genocide Initiative, which opens up with a few cymbal crashes before diving headfirst into dizzying in death metal, like grinding chord territory with sort of fiery riffs and all over the place drumming. And the tuning is also the note to feature a few more normally audible slapped bass lines too. Pretty much a great way to sort of end this album. Now overall, Hell Chose Me by Carnifex I feel like is pretty much them sort of like stepping up from their previous two albums, kind of like going into sort of like sticking with more of like the death metal side of deathcore, but with little hints of like black metal in there. And I honestly think this is pretty much probably my favorite Carnifex album, and it still holds up even 10 years later. So if I would give this album a score, I'll probably just say it right now. I'm just gonna give this a solid 10 out of 10. It's a really great album. So yeah, that's my review of Hell Chose Me by Carnifex, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it. And I'm also gonna see them in April with Three Teeth and The Browning. So if anybody's going to that, see you there. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. See you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.